Welcome on board the Newstrack. I'm Rahul Kanwal. On the show this evening, inside India's grand vaccine ramp-up plan. How achievable are the ambitious targets laid out by the governments, and the key vaccine manufacturers will be joining us exclusive for this industry roundtable on whether the vaccine ramp-up plans are achievable, what can go wrong, everything that you need to know coming up on the Newstrack.
India's vaccination drive stutters. Does India have enough jabs? How will India ramp up production? Overcoming the big vaccine challenge. The big focus on Newstrack.
So here's the ask. An estimate suggests that we need to vaccinate 94.5 crore people. That's 189 doses of vaccination. 19 crore vaccines have already been provided to states and union territories. At the current rate, it could take 3 years to vaccinate India's population, those who need to be vaccinated. This is not acceptable. We can't be dealing with this pandemic for 3 more years. So what's the fastest ramp up that is possible? The government's laid some ambitious targets. Are they at all achievable? To talk about this and more, I want to welcome to this panel Mr. T.V. Narendran, Chief Executive Officer, Managing Director, Tata Steel, President Designate at CII. With us on this broadcast is one of the most important women in our country at this time, Dr. Suchitra Ella, co-founder and joint managing director of Bharat Biotech. That's the one company that will have to do a lot of the heavy lifting if India is to meet these ambitious ramp-up targets. One of the icons of the Indian biotech industry, we've got Kiran Mazumdar-Shaw, Chief Executive of Biocon Limited, joining us. And last but not least, I want to introduce Dr. Naresh Trehan, one of India's most respected doctors, Chairman, Managing Director of Medanta, the Medicity. I want to go across to Dr. Suchitra Ella. First, if you can lay out your confidence interval in being able to meet the ambitious targets that have been set. From 90 lakh to 2 crore doses per month, you're saying that you'll be able to produce 5 crore doses by July. What preparations have you made at the back end to be able to ramp up your vaccine production at the speed at which the government's hoping you'll be able to deliver? Dr. Ella.
Rahul, hi Kiran, Naren, and hi Dr. Trehan. Rahul, the first thing I would like to clarify to you is that Bharat has not one but 3 established manufacturing facilities. The first one, you know, Rahul, is in Genome Valley in Hyderabad, where we have been saying from the beginning that we have a production scale of about 200 to 250 million doses per annum. We went on and added a new facility on the outskirts of Bangalore, which is a facility which was just roped in for Bharat. It belongs to a group concern, and it was brand new, and we have just gone ahead and completely taken that facility over, where we have capacities to roll out 500 million doses of vaccines per annum. These are all BSL 3 facilities, Rahul. So that stands clear for us from day one. Just yesterday, early this week, we have also gone ahead and stepped up another unit of ours in Ankleshwar, Gujarat, which is an existing rabies vaccine production facility, which is also a viral vaccine technology platform, which is operating and which is also producing the rabies vaccine as I speak to you. We are completely taking over that facility as well to bring in an additional 200 million doses per annum. So our take at this point of time, given the 3 facilities which are under the control of Bharat Biotech today, we have close to achieving at least $1 billion doses of vaccines for the year to come.
Now that is how very ambitious,
has been
and
happening. Yeah.
It's good that you're thinking of ramping up at this scale, but what all could go wrong? Because this is a very dramatic ramp up from producing just in Hyderabad. You're moving to Bengaluru, going to Ankleshwar. What all could potentially derail this dramatic ramp up, and how can everybody else try and help to ensure that the derail doesn't happen?
See, these are existing facilities where we have deployed them for production of other viral vaccines. So these are not something that is completely different or out of line with what Bharat and the other sister concern have been deployed for the last 10-15 years. We've been doing this consistently. The Ankleshwar facility, we had an acquisition. It was acquired from GSK. It was their Rabipur vaccine plant in Ankleshwar. It's a WHO pre-qualified facility where Rabipur was being manufactured. So all of them are active sites. The only, if at all, concern or a little bit of cautious planning will be in the ramp up in Bangalore, because it is almost a four-fold increase of the volumes that we are talking right now. The fermenters and the bioprocesses areas are going to be to a scale of 3,000 and above fermenters. Kiran knows what I'm talking about. These fermenters are large enough for a human being to enter into them, to service, and so on. So this is an area of caution that we are playing very cautiously. But again, we have had similar experience and expertise in manufacturing the foot and mouth disease vaccine, FMD vaccine as we call it, also from an adjacent facility out at the outskirts of Bangalore.
There have been many demands within the country that the IPR of the CoVaccine, because ICMR, the Indian Council of Medical Research, is involved, should be taken away from you, made available as a public good so that other companies can join in and we can ramp up much faster collectively than you would be able to as an individual company. How do you view these questions, and are you at all open to your IPR being made public?
Being open to an IPR made public at this point of time for the world or for the humanity or all the countries at large is not the issue, Rahul. The issue is that biological processes are not so simple that they just work with an IPR and what is written in a patent document in black and white and submitted. Kiran, I know, is nodding her head, and I know what she's going through in her mind as well, is that there is so many interlinked processes, technologies that are again connected to different sources from where these materials and adjuvants and so many other in-process areas of techniques and processes come. So they're all interlinked to the whole world, Rahul. This is not just with Bharat Biotech and having one patent document or an IPR document and handing it over to somebody.
Dr. Shaw, do you agree with that? Because there's a very strong demand that especially with CoVaccine through Bharat Biotech, this be made available so that other companies can jump in. What's your non-partisan view on Dr. Ella very clearly not wanting to make that public, IPR public, saying that it's not as if she wants to hold on to it, but it's not practical for other companies to start manufacturing. What if these vaccines start having adverse reactions? It will impact the vaccine credibility process.
Quality.
So Rahul, let me put it this way. I think it is the politically right statement to make, because I think that's what is happening. This is a good rhetoric to have globally, because at a time like this, when we want vaccine adequacy and vaccine equity, obviously everyone wants vaccines to be produced at huge scale. And we know that right now we don't have the global scale required to provide global equity to all these vaccines. As you know, many parts of the world are starved of vaccines. So whilst it is great to say that we need to have patent waivers and we need to basically get into compulsory licensing, I think as Suchitra very nicely explained, I don't think the lay person or the politicians or the policymakers realize what biological processes are all about, what technology transfers are all about, and how long it takes to start from lab to scale up in terms of producing a quality product with all the quality release requirements and regulatory requirements. It takes anywhere between 9 months to 12 months, to say the least, to take, say, a Bharat Biotech vaccine, even if Suchitra was saying, I'm willing to share my technology. Let me tell you that if Bharat Biotech was to share the technology and transfer the technology to a company like mine, believe me, it'll take at least a year before you can produce anything at decent scale.
If I were to ask you to critically evaluate the plan to scale up that's been laid out by Dr. Ella, what would be your analysis? Because Bharat Biotech so far has been doing roughly 5 million doses every month. She is now talking about increasing that to 1 billion per year. That's 100 plus million per month. That's a 20x increase over current production levels in a very short time frame. She's enlisting new facilities. Is that achievable, Dr. Shah?
Well, I think what she explained today was that she's actually started her process in Hyderabad, where she knows the technology, where they know what is required to scale up. Of course, it's not going to be possible for her to scale up next month. But I think knowing that you have a technology, and I know that even in the Bangalore plant, they've been working for the last several months. It's not like they're working today. So now that they worked for the last 6 to 7 months to see how they can scale up that technology, I think it can be coming to a stage where they're able to scale it up. Now, I think she also mentioned Ankleshwar, and I'm sure they've been working on the Ankleshwar facility for some time. So it's not like you switch it on today and tomorrow you can produce the 20x scale. It does take time, but from my knowledge, and Suchitra, correct me if I'm wrong, I think you have been working on the scale up for several months now. So what she's sharing with you now is several months of effort to get to this scale up stage. And even at this stage, of course, I'm sure Suchitra knows that it is not slam dunk. She is going to have to basically scale it up. Once they commission it and get it off the ground, it's going to take a few more months to get to that scale that Suchitra is talking about. So I think the kind of billion dose kind of scale that Bharat Biotech is trying to aim for, in my view, I would think would only come on stream maybe early next year. I mean, realistically speaking.
Okay. I'm going to build on some of this, but I want to go across to Mr. Narendran before that. You understand supply chain and logistics well. The question is this a missed opportunity? Should we have, like the United States and some other countries, have worked on some of these processes parallelly, where the government in conjunction with private enterprise would have ensured by preparing to scale up in advance? The moment the vaccination permissions came through and these vaccines were cleared through the trials, we'd be able to roll out at scale. If you look at the graph right now, from about the early part of April, the worms just been coming down. Is this, according to you, Mr. Narendran, would you accept a missed opportunity?
Yeah, the wisdom of hindsight,
Rahul,
yes.
Just before Mr. Narendran comes on, I also want to talk about something else. There is a lot of missed opportunities in idle capacities in the government system, which we have not used. I want to point that out. There is a large facility in Chennai, which has been idle for years. And that is something we ought to have commissioned a long time ago.
No, but the government did issue some invited people to come and tender and start using them, and nobody came forward because those facilities haven't been used for years. So we'll build on this. But Mr. Narendran, do you think India's vaccine ramp-up process is actually a failed process when it comes to ensuring that you had adequate capacity at the time at which it was needed?
Yeah, the wisdom of hindsight, yes, certainly we should have done things much faster. I think, there was a period in time when everyone took it easy because the cases were lower. I would also say that even at that point in time, there was a lot of vaccine hesitancy because people felt that there was no need for a vaccination. And I can say that even at the corporate level, when we checked people who were eligible for vaccination in the middle of March, it was just 40% of the people who were eligible for vaccination had vaccinated themselves. So we had to run campaigns to get people to vaccinate themselves. And of course, come April and everyone wanted to get vaccinated. So I think, obviously, we could have ramped up earlier. We could have placed orders earlier. We could have got vaccines earlier. We should have overcome vaccine hesitancy earlier. But that's the wisdom of hindsight. I think having said that, I think we should focus on moving faster going forward, making sure that more and more people are vaccinated before you have a wave 3, and certainly plan for a wave 3 in many different ways because issues could be very different at that point in time.
So you're speaking to the manufacturers of all the different vaccines in India. whether it's Covishield, Covaxin, whether it's the Bio-E-subunit vaccine, Zydus Cadila, Novavax, which again is Serum Institute, the Sputnik vaccine. The government's data that was put out says that they will be able to ensure manufacturing capacity, the production capacity of 216 crore doses. That's more than India needs. Is that based in fact, or is this just a government under pressure trying to show high numbers so that people get a sense of confidence that there is a vaccine coming without panicking? Mr. Narendran.
I think the sense we're getting is by August, we should have at least 150 to 180 million vaccines available per month. That's a sense we're getting based on the conversations that we are having. And obviously, we as industry are preparing for that. CII is preparing for that. We're getting members to aggregate the requirements. We are coordinating between the vaccine manufacturers, the hospitals who need to actually place the orders, and the members who need to go to the hospitals to get the vaccination done. So there's a lot of work going on that, so that as the vaccines are available, hopefully more available in June than we have in May for the private sector, we will be able to roll out the vaccination to support what the government is already doing. So yes, there is a steep ramp up which is being planned, but as Kiran and Suchitra said, the preparation has not just started happening. I think the preparation has been going on for some time. The orders have been placed. I think the monies have been paid. And so there's confidence that if the vaccine manufacturers produce what they can produce, it will flow in through the system. And I think that's what we're working towards.
Dr. Trehan, the government's target of 216 crore doses between August and December this year, is this achievable? What do you make of the plan laid out by Dr. Suchitra Ella for Bharat Biotech and the overall plan that the government is now working on?
So there are three issues here. On one hand, as elaborated by my colleagues on the panel, and actually gave some sobering thoughts about how the process is complicated and that you should not be pressurizing to say, produce more. It's a process which has to be done. And the compliment to all the people who manufacture, especially Bharat Biotech, is that they did a remarkable job in a short time. So that's one part of it. If you aggregate all the promises and the potentials that we have in this country to manufacture incremental doses, we need to reach 20 crore doses a month. With that, you can say with the 200 crore doses that we need, by the end of this year, we would have at least accomplished what we are claiming that we will do by October, November. But the point is, on the way, if we reach a critical mass, and the critical mass has two components. One is those people who have already been infected and developed some immunity. The other, in addition to that, are people who have been vaccinated. If you aggregate all of them, and we reach about 70%, 80% of our population is protected, then the rest of the 20% become, by all calculations, like what we call herd immunity or the natural shield, that then we are now in a very comfortable stage, and it doesn't matter if the rest of the 20 crore people will be vaccinated by November, December. So we already have done 20 crore doses. Not that 20 crore people have been vaccinated, 20 crore doses. Now you subtract that from 200 crore doses that we need to achieve our vaccination target. If you're saying it is 180, and by July, if we can reach 20 crores, which the potential seems like, that it is incremental, then the second part kicks in, our ability to vaccinate. Fortunately, we have enough facilities on the ground, enough army of vaccinators that we can deliver those 20 crores per month. So that is taken care of. Now the basic thing is, if there is wanting for vaccines, where else can we go? And right now, there are different views coming from the rest of the world to say, US has now surplus, UK may have surplus, you hear Australia has surplus, Europe may have surplus. So if this aggregated into another 20, 30 crores that we can acquire in this period, we would have a winner on our hands, because this deficiency is for the next 3 months. Now, if we can really lay our hands on the vaccine internationally, and I think the industry has put out international tenders, the state governments have put out international tenders, the central government has put, and the search is on. And there was a report today that our foreign minister is going to the US with top of the agenda being vaccine. So not only should we leverage what we can do in India, but try to leverage what is available around the world. Now, the second often used adage now that nobody's safe till everybody's safe. Now, that's a truism. That truism is there because, as you have noticed, this the first mutation that appeared in UK came to India, and if you study Maharashtra and the NCR region, a large proportion of these people were infected by the variant from UK. UK first estimated that this would spread faster but would not be as virulent as the first virus. It turned wrong. It was proven wrong in UK.
So how serious, according to you, is the concern that there could be a mutation between now and November, December, which makes Dr. Ella's vaccine redundant, or at least the immunity that is built is not adequate to chase the mutant away or keep the mutant away?
It is a possibility. Dr. Ella, I'm sure, has given a lot of thought to it. The whole environment is looking at what do we have to do, like happens in the flu vaccine, that there are elements in which they introduce new elements to match the virus. So it is going to be a cat and mouse game for some time. But once you reach that herd immunity, once you've reached your targets, then these mutations may or may not be able to play havoc with us.
Dr. Ella, are you concerned about the prospect of a mutation occurring which makes your vaccine far less effective than it is at this moment?
Rahul, I just want to, yes, certainly we have taken that into consideration already.
How?
I just want to also correct one small aspect. The ICMR, when we reached out to the ICMR, we only reached out for the strain of the virus. There was no technology as such coming to the industry from the academic body at that point of time.
Okay.
We just needed our hands on the strain, and that's what we got from Pune. From there on, it was developed in-house, completely funded in-house, and taken through all the testing, animal toxicology and human testing, and everything was done as per the international norms and protocols of drug development and discovery. So this is something that I would like to set straight. Yes, the NIV Pune has been and ICMR have been collaborating to the sense. The animal studies which had to be done in monkeys and hamsters, Kiran knows what I'm talking about. We in the private industry don't have access to have such larger animals.
So you're saying it's not as if ICR gave you the technology, they only gave you the strain and helped you with the trials.
I hear that. And then we also did the clinical studies for the animals.
Okay, respond to a question that many would have as they hear you right now. How concerned are you that there could be a mutation of the kind that we've seen globally, whether it's something like what happened in South Africa or Brazil or maybe the Indian strain, which leaves your vaccine unable to produce antibodies which can hold that virus off? What will you do in that case? How concerned are you about this? How realistic is this possibility?
We are, Rahul, we have already gone ahead and we have exchanged our vaccine samples with the NIV because we don't have access to international strains, being a private manufacturer and a private developer. So the strains from the UK, from Brazil and from South Africa have been sent to the NIV Pune, and including the double mutant of India, have all been neutralized by CoVaccine. So this is something that CoVaccine has proven with studies and also shown that it can neutralize effectively all the different mutants as of now.
What is the status of your trials for children? You were attempting to get the vaccine out for children. There were trials going on. What's the status of those trials? What are the initial results so far? By when can children and how young will they be if they're able to have access to the Bharat Biotech vaccine?
There was no vaccine trials done on children, Rahul, because the age group of children had to be 2 and under 18 or under 12. I think there are subgroups again in that. So this group of 2 to 12 has not been studied so far. We have received a go-ahead from the SEC and the National Regulatory Authority, which is the Drug Controller General of India, to conduct the children's studies starting next month, Rahul. This is a safety study because the immunogenicity and the efficacy of the vaccine, of CoVaccine, has been proven already in a very large
so if you start your safety study at the beginning of next month, how long will it be if the trial results show your vaccine is efficacious that children above 12 will get vaccinated?
It is only to show safety at this point of time because the efficacy and the immunogenicity has already been shown.
So how long will that process take?
Rahul, I think if all goes well and if the second wave doesn't get in between us and the children, and also this is volunteerism, there is no way I can reach out to anybody out there and say, hey, please send your child across to be a volunteer. It has to come from the family or from the parents because children are children. So we know the sensitivity in that issue, but having conducted pediatric trials to the tune of more than 500,000 babies and infants across 20 countries in the world, we know that this is doable, Rahul. And we think that our dosage is only 28 days apart. So we look at a timeline of 60 to 90 days maximum. Hopefully within that time frame, we hope to have good data, safety data published for children, submitted to the Drug Controller General first.
June, July, August, you do your trials. Post-August, kids above 12 will get vaccinated. Is that what you're saying?
Rahul, we are a regulated industry and I do not have the authority to send my batches out. It is essentially the same product that is sitting in my cold room right now that I could dispense, but I am not authorized to do so against the law. And it is the permission that is required for us to dispatch for that age group of the population, which has to be studied and proven and obviously vetted by the National Regulatory Authority to be acceptable as data before it is deployed into children.
Dr. Kiran Shaw, now that some of the global vaccines like the Pfizer vaccine are being used on young adults, is there a way in which the government and industry can help Dr. Ella and others to speed up the process? If you have to wait till August for safety trials to be conducted, it will take that much more time for children to be vaccinated. By when we'd be in November, December, and that's when the fear of the third wave looms. So is there a way of shortening that time cycle?
Well, the regulatory process is a process which you really can't cut short. I mean, I think right now what Dr. Ella has just said is that we are trying to basically do a safety study on children. And once that is done, because we are not doing an efficacy study, we are just doing a safety study. So that safety study is going to depend on the recruitment rate. How many children, come forth for this trial? And once that is done, you have to look at the data. That data has to be presented to the regulator. The subject expert committee will evaluate that data and then give them, and that does take the review process itself takes a month. And I mean, that would be a very fast review process. So I think you must understand that once you conduct the study, then you have to collate the study, present it in a certain form, give it to the regulators. So it takes time. I mean, I think this is a very, very abbreviated timeline. Normally, this kind of a study will take 1 year.
So that already then we're into September while the regulator looks at the data of the safety studies, and then the production rollout will happen at least.
No, I think the production is there. I think what Ella said is she's got it ready to roll out. What they need is a regulatory nod for her to do that.
You mentioned that there should be government manufacturing facilities which have the wherewithal, which should be pressed into service. The government's been trying, but it's not working out. Why is it not working out? How can that process be changed so that companies come forward and produce these vaccines at scale at some of these government facilities?
As I mentioned, I think both of us have been saying that it's easier said than done. The process of technology transfer, scale up, quality systems. You want to make sure that the quality systems are on par with what WHO mandates. Now, if to make sure that your quality systems are aligned, I mean, I'm sure they are, but you need to go through all that. So it's not easy, Rahul. And right now, I think you need Mrs. Ella needs to focus her attention on her existing facilities. Do you want her to spend time scaling up their existing facilities, or do you want them to be distracted trying to get government facilities up and running? I think you must understand that we have limited, resources. And at this time, if you want to scale up to this $1 billion level, you need all your resources to be, focused on your own efforts and not start getting detracted to helping a government facility get started. So I think we have to be a bit realistic in the way you can't simplify it the way you're saying, Rahul.
Sure, I understand that totally.
I don't think you understand.
No,
Rahul.
I do. I'm just playing devil's advocate. I totally understand
the
sensitivity involved, and we're not trying to rush this through, but we're just trying to ensure
that... That's what I want you to understand, that don't play the devil's advocate, because this is a complex process.
Okay, so Mr. Narendran, now we're seeing, and I want to show that to our viewers, on the Corona India dashboard, the number of cases are actually coming down. And if the number of cases are coming down, how long do you think, from the perspective of all the members of industry that you're speaking to, it will be before we can start pulling back some of these restrictions which exist? Because here is Tamil Nadu, Maharashtra, Andhra Pradesh, Kerala, Karnataka, in several states. So if you leave Tamil Nadu on the other side, but in several states like Maharashtra, Uttar Pradesh, the number of cases are now starting to come down. So how long do you see these statewide lockdowns go on for? By when do you think, from an industry, economy, health perspective, we'll be able to go back to the way things were in January, February? What's your guess, sir?
So Rahul, as of now, most of the governments have announced lockdowns in whatever definition they call it till the end of May. I suspect the states which had the problems earlier would be the ones to lift the restrictions sooner. But having said that, I think as industry, we need to be very responsible. We shouldn't be complacent once again. We should make sure that even if people are vaccinated, we follow due protocols. And we certainly need to prepare collectively for wave 3, however far ahead in the future it is. So, but I want to reiterate also that most of us in industry follow very, very strict protocols. And I was being told the other day that people are safer inside the factory than outside it. And there is data to support that. So I think industry is confident that due discipline will be enforced and followed, and that we can come back quite soon, as long as the risk to the public is reduced and things start opening up. So I expect that by June we will start seeing some of the states which have things under control opening up.
I want to show our viewers on the Corona India dashboard powered by our data intelligence unit the vaccination graph. And the problem here, Dr. Trehan, is it kind of takes off a bit from the end of March till the beginning of April. It seems as if it's taking off like a hockey stick, and then suddenly it starts coming hurtling down. And even at this moment, we're not able to get the graph up. Because the total number of vaccinations, especially the second dose, is a crashing graph. How long will it be, according to you? Because you're out in the market, you're seeing the vaccine supplies coming in, they're still halting. We're talking big numbers here, 216 crores. At this moment, all the data suggests the number of people getting vaccinated on a daily basis is a trend line that's heading south.
So Rahul, it's the change of policy that took place on 1st of May caused a huge confusion in the system, in the supply line. So now the vaccines are flying in different directions. There's the central government, there's the state government, and then there's the private sector. So it created so much confusion that the supply lines were constrained. And now I'm hoping by the end of this week, or maybe beginning of next week, enough will be shipped to all the 3 components from the manufacturers that we can resume that 20 to 30 lakh that was being done before it started coming down. Now, the whole idea was to actually ramp it up to 50 lakhs, 60 lakhs, and so on and so forth. But so far, it hasn't happened. I don't know why. Only the manufacturers know what their problems are. But what happened to the supplies that they were giving in the market when we were actually vaccinating over 30 lakh people a day.
So let me ask that question to Dr. Ella. Dr. Ella, the green line on this graph is the line that represents those who've been double vaccinated. The blue line represents those who have a single dose. The yellow line is the total vaccination. The green line, especially both doses, is crashing. It's a graph that's coming down from the end of April till now. It's actually just coming down. The number of total vaccinations is also actually coming down in terms of whether the trend is of an increase or a decrease, and the number of people getting a single vaccination is a flat line. Why are companies like yours and Serum Institute not being able to ensure that this graph continues to rise at this moment? Because you're talking big numbers in the future. What about what's happening at this moment? Why are so many people struggling to get their hands on a vaccine dose?
Rahul, there are at least 2 to 3 things that come to my mind right now. One is that the vaccine industry is, to a large extent, dependent on imports for many materials and in-house, in-process equipments. As I speak, I have just seen a list of for CoVaccine, my in-house vaccine, which requires 45 different materials, whether it is consumables or cell factories, or whether it is some other equipments that are required with the small equipment. These are not the large capex related installed equipments that we are talking about. We have one issue to deal with, is to ensure that we have a continuous supply of these material that
have that continuous supply at this moment or not, Dr. Ella?
From other countries.
Okay, so now that this was raised with the United States President and the government got involved, are you now assured of continuous supply of all those materials, ingredients which are required for your vaccine manufacturing process?
It will have to be taken up. I know that the Minister of External Affairs is also visiting the United States, and the vaccine agenda is on the top of his list. And we have pointed it out to the government as well. The production schedules and the volumes that both of us right now, Serum and Bharat, can produce has been put forth to the ministries concerned, because we are regulated by the Health Ministry, but we also have the Department of Biotechnology, which Kiran is also very much aware as to another very important
so let me ask you a straight question.
If
the raw materials you need don't come through, then that ambitious target that you set of 1 billion doses, where does that come down to,
Rahul,
if you're not able to?
We have already procured, I can speak for our organization, we have already procured material until Jan 2022, if that gives you some comfort, because it is with that confidence that I'm able to sit here in front of you and talk about timelines and talk about production volumes. The second thing that I want to let you know is that the capability to ramp up does not happen in a mathematical style or it's not an equation of mathematics or chemical equations. Biology is something very different. I don't want to speak in front of Kiran. I know what I'm talking here, but this is live organisms. These are liquid formulations, highly sensitive. So we need to be extremely cautious in handling these pathogens in our laboratories and in our facilities. Our first goal is to ensure that it is a safe environment for our own employees who come in contact when they are multiplying this virus in those bioprocess areas, which is BSL-3. My first and foremost responsibility goes in maintaining that level of stringency and enabling negative pressure for them to be under for 12 hours in a day. So that said, the second thing that comes to my mind is opening up of the categories could have been a little bit deferred, could have been brought in a little later, because we started off with the first responders. We were able to cater to that very comfortably. Then we started off with the 60+ category, or the age group, the senior citizens. That was also going on. But then came April, and we opened it up to the 45 and above with comorbidities. And from May 1st, the government came back and said, we open it up for everybody until 18, down until 18, which I think it's just not doable at this point of time. I think we need to ramp up production, at the same time open up the categories also on the same manner of consistency in comparing the production, the volumes, the availability of the vaccine, and the population of this country.
Okay,
again,
Mr. Narendran,
in
this
all
is
these
where
segments.
global help becomes crucial. A lot of what Dr. Ella is saying is contingent on the External Affairs Minister's visit to the US, getting US permission and access to the raw materials. And that's the point that you made. Unless everyone is safe, no one is safe.
You want me to answer that again?
Mr. Narendran.
Sorry.
No, that's true. I think a problem like this cannot be solved without global cooperation. I think India has played a role in the vaccine value chain, and now it is for India to also get some help wherever required to make sure that our population is vaccinated. So I think the government, CII, the vaccine manufacturers, all of us are working together to see whatever we can do, even to the extent of, forget the vaccines, even for the oxygen, cryogenic tanks, and various other things. I think we've been working globally to get in whatever we can. So I think that's important, and that's very essential for us to deal with this challenge.
Okay, here is what the number of people getting vaccinated in each of our big states currently looks like. So there's Maharashtra, Uttarakhand, Rajasthan, Gujarat, West Bengal. We really need to ramp up the availability of vaccines, which depends on production, and that's where this conversation was so useful and insightful. Remember, there are imponderables at play, things that can still go wrong, but it's important to have this conversation so that there's pressure on the government in India and globally to ensure that raw materials are available so that production can indeed be ramped up, because without that we'll all be stuck at home, or we'll all have to live lives in fear, and this now needs to end. And ramping up vaccine manufacturing and production is really very, very important. So there have been some important insights through this conversation. I want to thank TV Narendran, Dr. Kiran Mazumdar-Shaw, Dr. Naresh Trehan and Dr. Suchitra Ella for joining us. You're doing all the heavy lifting, Suchitra, so I wish you all the best. I hope that we're able to actually get to 1 billion doses, and then once India is vaccinated, you can export globally and keep the chain going and help the rest of the world. But let's just, more power to you, and let's just hope that the numbers you've laid out on the show are actually met. Thank you so much for joining us on this India Today CII Vaccine Ramp Up Roundtable. I hope you enjoyed and benefited from this conversation. Thank you for tuning in, for your time and your trust. Thank you very much. I look forward to seeing you again. Bye-bye.